Welcome to another one of our videos here for our building a garage, a loft over a garage or a living area. And in this video we are going to show you how you can build a balcony on the side. And in one of our other videos I showed you how to build a balcony on the front. And we are going to use the same floor plan, except we are going to be installing scissor trusses with a gable end at each side. So let's go ahead and remove the walls and the floor sheathing along with the roof so that we can take a look at the balcony along with how you might be able to frame it. And since the floor joists are 12 inches on center and the balcony joists are 16 inches on center, we're going to lay them out to where they lap. So here we're going to have a lap in the joist connecting it to the floor joist. We're going to have another one here. Then we're going to go 4 feet, have another one here, and then another one at the end. And if you lay your joist out 12 inches on center, you're going to go 12, 24, 36, 48. 16 inches on center will be 16, 32, and then 48. That's how you're going to get the lap, along with the structural connection that will connect the balcony to the floor framing. And in the other video, I had a single joist at each end, and in this one here, I have a double joist at each end. And that will be up to you and your engineer to figure out which one you're going to use. And you will also need to check with your engineer to figure out if you can go out 1/3 and then go back 2/3, or go out 1/4 and come back 3/4. And in this example here, we are going out 1/3 or 4 feet and then coming back 8 feet, providing us with a 12-foot long joist. If I used the other method and came out 1/4 and then went back 3/4, I would need to have a 16-foot long floor joist for our deck balcony. And we are going to go ahead and shape the balcony joist so that it will be sloping 1/4 inch per foot. And this method here will require some type of a waterproofing deck finish. And we will also need to install a larger header. I believe in our other example we had a 4x6. I'm going to go ahead and put a 4x8 in here. However, you might need a 4x10 or a 4x12. And then I went ahead and installed double trimmers on each side to help with the loading above, and a double set of jack studs underneath the doubler over here, and went ahead and did the same on the other side. And if you're wondering why we have 4 studs here, that's because we're using 2 for the floor framing and then 2 for the balcony framing. And when you get to doing something like this, the engineer might require a 4x8 post. Keep that in mind also when you are designing a project like this. And we are dropping the outside of the deck down 2 inches. This is another standard construction method. And we will also need some blocking for the balcony sheathing. And I provided you with 2 different examples here. I went ahead and ran these joists all the way to the end of the wall framing. However, I didn't do it on the rest of the project to provide you with an example of how the blocking would work for this situation here. However, you could run this all the way through and then install a block on each side of the joist if you were going to run these joists all the way out to the end. And if you notice, I do not have a block at the end of the doubler here, and that's because we can nail the doubler into the joist on each side. For example, before I install this board and this board, I could fasten this one here securely to this one, and then fasten this one here to this one, and then install this one last, connecting it to this one here. And over here you might not need a block, but over here you definitely will. And even though the engineer might have drew the joist in at 16 inches on center, you could probably go 12 inches on center and eliminate all of the blocks, because you're going to be connecting each one of the balcony joist to each one of the floor joist. And I would imagine you're going to have to get about 3 more joists to make that happen. And of course, if the electrician or plumber needs to get through some of this stuff here, it's probably going to be difficult for them to drill their holes through it. However, not impossible. Take a look at how the blocks are connecting to the floor framing joist as well as the balcony joist. Pan out here, and I went ahead and installed a doubler here. And for those of you who have already watched the other video, I had blocks in here before to support the wall framing. Now if I go ahead and put the wall framing in without the floor sheathing, you can see that this one here is sitting on top of the doubler, even though I don't think it would be a problem if you just had one joist here, because this isn't a load bearing wall and it's not even that long of a wall. However, it wouldn't be a bad idea to install the blocks underneath the wall framing where the walls are not sitting directly on top of a floor joist. And of course another view of how the doubler here is going underneath the wall framing here, along with how the blocks are being used there. 16 inches on center should be fine. Next up, let's go ahead and remove the walls and take a look at our deck sheathing along with our floor sheathing. And of course our wall framing, along with our doorway that will take us out to our balcony. And since this opening is 5 feet, we are going to need double trimmers on each side. Another standard construction method. And this should give you a pretty good idea how the wall framing will work with the scissor trusses. Another view of it there. This is our bathroom. And our bathroom, of course, will have a vaulted ceiling just like our kitchen, closet, bedroom, and living room. And the exterior slope of the roof is going to be a 6 and 12. The interior is going to be a 3 and 12 pitch. Another view of the wall there. This is the bedroom. And even though I don't have any blocks here, this is probably going to require some blocking. For example, most building codes require midspan blocks in walls that are 10 feet and taller. Next up, let's go ahead and install our roof trusses. Now, our roof trusses are going to have a raised heel. And the reason for that will be to allow us to install thicker insulation all the way down to the framing plate. Another great idea for those of you who live in the cold areas. And another method you can use for installing blocks in this situation. And of course, we like to shape the top of the block so that we can have a nice connection to the roof sheathing. Next up, let's take a look at our ridge blocks, along with how you might be able to brace off the roof here by nailing a 2x4 at an angle to the roof trusses. Give you a nice view of it there. Next up, let's go ahead and install our fascia board. Now, we're not going to be installing outlookers, and the reason for that is to provide you with another idea or example of how you can install the fascia board with an 1.5 inch spacer. I think I have a couple of videos on how to install the outlookers. Along with a 1x4, a 2x4 is going to provide you with a little more room to get the siding or the stucco under. And you can see here how the 2x4s can be installed. And you could always run this all the way down if you wanted to, because sometimes it's going to be difficult to finish something like this if you're going to be painting it. However, not impossible. And I would imagine a thinner brush might solve that problem. And here you can see how we have a little gap. We have a 2x6 piece of fascia board over a 2x4, allowing us to have an 1.5 inch gap underneath the barge rafter there, or the end of the fascia board. And again, this allows us to slide our siding or our stucco underneath so that the water can roll off of the fascia board on this side and then onto the siding and down to the ground and hopefully away from the house without creating any problems. And again, I'm using the word hopefully there. Next up, let's take a look at our ceiling backing. That will be a 2x4. And I went ahead and ripped down some studs here 2 inches thick and nailed them to the studs on the gable truss to provide us with a way to extend the drywall up for our wall framing to connect to the ceiling. Let's go ahead and pan out here, see where the ceiling is going to come up and then down, and then take a look at the other side here and how the wall dies into this wall. And all of this stuff here works out. And again, don't forget you can stop the video at any time. That's what's nice about these videos, and examine something a little closer. And of course, we will be using truss clips. And your wall should be about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch lower to allow for the trusses to settle down, move down a little bit after the roofing has been installed, or any other thing that is going to be putting a load, creating a downward force on the roof trusses. And that's what these grooves are allowed with a nail. This allows the truss to move up and down while creating some sort of structural stabilization for this connection here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closet corner and the backing there. Pan out, take a look at the top. We are going to need backing for the ceiling here, along with backing in our bathroom and our kitchen area right here. And sometimes we will need to install some 2x4s, while other times we might be able to use our 1x4 or 2x4 bracing that will be used to prevent the bottom of the roof truss from moving. And I always try to position these boards to where they would work to my advantage when installing the ceiling backing like this. And I'm not expecting everybody to remember every single thing in this video. However, you can always go back and watch it again and again and again if there's something that you haven't quite figured out. Or as a common method of learning for me, repetition, repetition, repetition. And there are actually some books I have read or listened to on audio more than 40 times. And I know that might sound a little bit too much over the top, but I can tell you what, that has made all the difference in the world. Sometimes I'm watching a video, sometimes I'm reading a book, and about the 5th or 6th time comes along and I learn something like, how did I miss that? And it's kind of like a golden nugget experience, an epiphany, whatever you want to refer to it. And that might be something that will work for you also. Another view of our fascia and our blocks, along with the fascia, the ridge, and the bracing, and how all of this stuff flows through to the other side. So let's go ahead and start wrapping this video up. Like I said, this is part of a series. I will have more information about all of these videos in some of my other videos, including this one, or a link to our website where you can find all of these videos. And as always, if you have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comment area and I will answer them as soon as possible. And for those of you wondering why I have a little strip here, that's because I started my 2-foot on center layout from the side here, the end of the wall, the end of the gable truss, and I still have my perimeter nailing here around the building. And since I'm connecting the fascia board to a 2x4 to the truss, I don't think this is going to create a problem for the perimeter nailing on the fascia board, and something that you can argue with your engineer if you need to. Just don't put a lot of effort into it or say, hey, I saw this on one of these YouTube videos, because that's probably not going to be enough for the engineer.